Well, hello there, Lab Coat. I am Shawn Kerley filling in for Jeff, and we have Mr. Brian Stevens with the National Real Estate Post here for a little bit of talk about 2020, what we think about 2021. But first thing, Brian, if I yawn or if I fall asleep standing up, it's not about you or what we're talking about. My beautiful baby Paulina, 10-month-old, did not sleep. So I'm running on fumes and coffee and office squats, just trying to keep my energy up and go from there. But anyways, let's talk about 2021, some changes that may come into place with the new regime taking over. We got Marcia Fudge coming in, it's a new director of HUD. What are a couple of things that we're thinking that are that may change with the FHA financing rules?
Oh God, who cares? Who cares? Let's get back to you have a 10-month-old daughter named Nina?
Paulina.
Okay, so I'm going to completely derail this entire conversation right now. All right. So on Christmas in 2007, going into 2008, my mortgage business was a complete disaster. We had already started out here in California finding like all the deficits from the subprime loans, and there was like nobody who was writing loans. So my wife had to go back to work. Okay.
Yep.
And she was a buyer for a company called Pete's Coffee and Tea, which is kind of like a Starbucks type of thing, but much smaller and totally better. And so we went to go see her brother-in-law in Arizona for Christmas. Now, I couldn't afford to fly out there. I was dead broke. My business was completely ruined. And my wife was the one who was working. And so I drove from Northern California down to Rancho Cucamonga in Southern California, and then drove out to Phoenix. And then I went past Phoenix, and there's a road called Apache Junction Road or Boulevard. You follow that for about 100 miles. And then there's like this subdivision in the middle of the desert. And by the way, the desert has everything wants to kill you. Fangs, spikes, stingers, people, weather, you name it. There's a reason why every movie about Mars is filmed in Arizona. So I was at my brother-in-law's house out there, right? And I had my 8-year-old son and my 7-year-old son and my 6-year-old daughter. And I had a little bench Mazda truck that I drove out there. My wife flew in, and I couldn't buy my kids presents for Christmas. Couldn't do it, couldn't afford it. And I felt like such a piece of crap. And I had a moment where I thought about walking home. And I understand I'm 1,400 miles away from my house. And I just drove with 2 kids in a bench seat, little 4-cylinder Mazda truck who were fighting the whole way.
Sounds like fun.
So, yeah, it was great. Wonderful. So anyways, so what we did was after Christmas, my wife flew back because she had to go back to work. And then I drove back. But I said, I can't go through LA again. Is there a better road? So my brother-in-law said, yeah, go through Vegas. And so Vegas basically cuts you go through Hoover Dam. So instead of doing this, you do this. And so my kids, I'm telling you right now, I was at my wit's end. I was at my lowest point in my life. And I got stuck behind Hoover Dam for 14 hours. Ooh. I had to turn the car off, and I sat there and just listened to my kids fight. It's like, it's Rodney Dangerfield, I know why lions eat their young type of thing. So I found myself on New Year's Eve on Tropicana Boulevard in Las Vegas. And I was thinking, this is crazy. I'm like, this is crazy. I'm broke. I got 2 fighting kids. My wife is over here. I was in the middle of the desert. Like, this is like nutty shit. Well, I couldn't afford to stay in Vegas. So I stayed in a city. I thought I was going to get home in one day. So I stayed in a city that was one of the, like Fontana, one of these little crappy, towns outside of Vegas where you can get like a $29 room. So we went there, and it took me like 20 hours to get there. And so when I was there, I called my wife up and I said, hey, did you make it home okay? And she goes, yeah, I did, but I got to tell you something. And I go, what? And she goes, I'm pregnant.
Oh.
And I'm like, shit, this is not good. So I'm dead serious. When you brought your daughter up, this reminded me of the story, and I'm gonna get to my point here. But when she told me this, I did what any reasonable person would do. I bought my kids a piece of pizza and I bought myself a double shot of Jack Daniels.
Mhm.
And remember, my business is completely destroyed. And so I thought to myself, well, I've got a degree from one of the top colleges in the country. I could be a teacher. No. I'm pretty good with a hammer. I could do that. No. Like, what the hell am I going to do? Well, I was really good at loans. And I took my loan business for granted for years. And I used to think I was really smart. I thought I was smart because I was making a lot of money. But the interesting thing is when they take your money away, or when your money gets taken away, you realize you're not as smart as you thought you were. And so what I did was, as I sat there outside of Las Vegas in 2007 on New Year's Eve, and I said, I'm going to learn how to run my business again. And I'm going to make this the best year that I ever had, because I've got a kid coming, and there's no two ways about this. I got a little daughter coming. So I took my shot. I called my processor. Her name was Tracy Kearns. And I said, I'm having a kid. And her husband owned the company that I was working for. And she goes, oh, this is going to be great for you. I'm like, no, you're rich. I'm not. God damn it. This is not okay. So what I did was I recommitted myself. And I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a piece of plexiglass between me and everybody. And I'm going to call everybody. And I'm going to get them to do what I need them to do in order to make my business where it needs to be, because I'm having a daughter. And remember in the 80s, it was like, put another quarter in, play another game. And so I did this for a year and a half. And in 2009 and 10, when the industry was at its absolute low point, I had my best year ever. My best year ever. I mean, I won't tell you what I made, but trust me, it was ugly good. When nobody in Solano County was doing any business, I was doing business. Now, here's the funny part of this. Me and Frank became speakers because we started doing the show and we started doing all these other things, and I'm running my business. And I found myself this last year, my daughter, my wife is up with her family up in Seattle. And so this was when we were back in school 2 years ago. And I'm like, well, hold on a second. I have a speaking gig in Anaheim, Southern California. I spoke at the Realogy event in Las Vegas. And then I had a speaking event in Phoenix 2 days later. It was 1, 2, 3. So now my wife leaves, and I'm like, what the hell am I going to do? All right. So I got my daughter, who's a great student. What we were talking about this. She's the one right now who's doing a great job with the home learning stuff. So I said, screw this. I'm going to take her on a road trip. I'm going to take my daughter, and we're going to do 1,500 miles together. So we did. We went down to Anaheim, where we went out to a Ruth Chris Steakhouse, and she got a filet and put ketchup on it, which I still think is funny because somebody else paid for it. Then we went to Vegas to the Realogy event, and I took her to a Cirque du Soleil. Then we went out to Phoenix, and this is, you understand, this is just the grind. And after I took her out to Phoenix, I mean, she was wiped out. And I said, okay, we have to get back. And it's like, remember, I've done this shit before. We have to drive back. And am I going to go through Vegas, or am I going to go through here, or go through Rancho Cucamonga? So I said, well, I'm going to go through Vegas. So what I did was I woke her up at 4 o'clock in the morning, put her in my car. She's a 10-year-old girl at this time. And the reason I did that is so she'd fall asleep and I could drive all this way and she doesn't have to wake up. And I found myself, I shit you not, 10 years to the day later, driving through Vegas with the girl that I realized I was going to have as a kid sitting next to me, and think of the different worlds I was in. Yep. I was broken and I was fixed. Mm-hmm. And it was 10 years to the day. And she doesn't even understand how important it is. Every time I look at my daughter, dude, every single time I look at her, it reminds me I need to be better at everything I do in life. That's awesome. And I remember driving down these roads in the middle of nowhere. I mean, the deserts of California, Arizona, and Nevada. I remember driving and just looking at her saying, this was the greatest thing that ever happened to me. Mm-hmm. So when you tell me that you have a 10-month-old daughter, don't ever take a moment for granted. It's the most wonderful gift you've ever had.
Yeah, my wife and I, we have a 5-year-old daughter and a 10-month-old, and we're very, very blessed, both healthy. I don't want them to grow up, but last night at 2 o'clock, whenever I'm rocking her for an hour, and she's just looking at me with her big old eyes and smiling.
Yeah.
Like, just sleep, because I know tomorrow's going to be terrible. My brain's not going to work. I'm not going to be able to talk, whatever. But anyway, it's all worth it. I enjoy it, and there'll be times where I'll miss these days for sure.
Well, and in 2020, in this year where everybody is, I think this second shutdown type of thing is really starting to affect people's psyches. So I do like a book group, and I see like the tension ratcheting up right now. And for a realtor or lender out there, 2020 is like, we're thinking, okay, it's over and this is great. It's not leaving in 2020. If this thing ended tomorrow, we're not going to bring back the 800 businesses that are closing down every single day, or the 110,000 that have closed down permanently as a result of this, or how we spend our money, which is going online. And how we spend our money is we're centralizing where the money goes, and we're strip mining our communities of their wealth. Like, that's not going to change. So what we need to do as realtors and lenders, because as a salesperson, you have to always be on your game, because nobody wants to buy or work with somebody who's not on their game. So, fake it till you make it type of thing. But this year in particular is the one where you have to really look at what your assets are. And as a parent, your assets are oftentimes your kids. For us, they're our kids. But your assets are also your friends. Your assets are the people who care about you. Your assets is your business. Your assets are your past clients, the people who depend on you to do a great job. Like, these are the things that we need to really hyper focus on, because we don't have a bureaucratic position to where it's basically junk in, junk out, and hit the time clock. We have to be on our game. We are in the service industry. So just keep that in mind. Now, with respect to the CFPB, yes, they're going to become much more punitive in nature as we go forward. There's no doubt about that. The incoming administration is going to go back to the Richard Cordray days. In fact, would you stop? In fact, what's going to happen is I think Richard Cordray himself will come back. So it's going to be policy through punishment. What that's going to lead to is it's going to lead to lenders lending on fewer loans and tightening up their guidelines. It's going to take liquidity out of the market. And the Mortgage Bankers Association has even spoken to this point. So that's certainly going to be a component. For lenders, it's also going to be a shorter year because refinances are going to go down. Rates are not going to go up. You heard it here. Rates are not going to go up. They might fluctuate between 0.25%, but they're not going to go up. We're in a low rate environment for a long time because our economy is on the precipice of actually collapsing. But this is actually a good thing for real estate agents, because we're going to go from a $4 trillion industry in the mortgage market to, according to the MBA, a $2.75 trillion market. So we're almost going to cut it in half. So if you're a mortgage shop and you are 80% refinances, imagine losing 45% of the 80% of your business, and it could be catastrophic for you. But, we all got to make our bed somewhere. For realtors, the good part is I think we're going to have more inventory coming on board. Here's the reason why. We have our forbearances, they've gone down. We've talked about this time and time again. Our forbearances are going down because lenders and servicers are modifying these loans and they're taking them out of forbearance. Lenders and servicers are saying, okay, I'll eat $100,000 and get the hell out of here. That mindset is very, very demonstrative. I will eat $100,000 in non-payments, get out of here, because they don't want to have to bite that loan and sell it on a scratch and dent market, which is going to cost them more in the long run. But what we're seeing is even though we're seeing our forbearances going down, what we're seeing is our 90 and 120-day lates are going up. In short, people are going out of forbearance, but they're not making their payments. People don't have their payments. And with the second round of shutdowns that we're seeing right now, this number is only going to increase. And I'll tell you what I've seen from Congress right now with this second round of bailouts, the $1.3 trillion, it's not going to feed the beast. We just had a $3 trillion bailout, and it kept us afloat for 3 months. And it allowed us to have like a really crazy mortgage and real estate market, didn't it? When people are getting unemployed, property values are going up. How in the hell is that possible? Well, it's possible because we're paying people not to work. But that lasted for 3 months. Now we've got 1/3 of the $3 trillion. And how long is that going to last? So we're on this road right now. And we've got this vaccine. You're an anti-vaxxer. You know what? If you don't want a vaccine, give me yours. I'll take 10. Give them all to me. Okay, but we're on this road right now, aren't we? And are we going to be able to come out of this thing before the $1.4 trillion has worn off, and can that save what is going to be the real estate market? I think we're going to see an uptick in foreclosures, but because buying demand is so good and so strong right now, we're not going to see a downturn in prices. So real estate agents, two things you need to do right now. Two things you need to do. First, hear me out. You need to reach out to your past client database. Everybody always says this, but you're not calling them today and saying, hey, how are you? Give me a deal because I need to, buy Christmas presents. No, you need to call your past client database right now because you have people in that group who have not made a payment for 3 months. And I'll tell you this, having a short sale or having a sale when they have equity is better than a foreclosure. Live to fight another day. Here's what you do. You call your past clients up and say, hey, this whole thing has been really difficult. How you doing? That's your conversation. Don't sell anything. How you doing? You will find there are people who need to sell their houses. It's going to benefit them. You absolutely have to do this right now. The second thing that real estate agents have to do is they have to market this. We have to talk about it. We can't just have it with our past clients. We have to have this conversation with everybody. So a lot of people are afraid of video. A lot of people are afraid of all the different means of communication right now that we have, like this whole thing. This is not going away. Like, you understand, the coronavirus can leave, but this form of communication is not leaving. So you as a salesperson whose job it is to communicate with other people need to engage in what we're doing right now. And what you have to do as an agent, you always want to have your talking points. I get it. Your talking point is shoot a video. It's a very complicated process. Go on Facebook, do this. Take an index finger. Which finger am I using? I said index. Okay, index finger. All right, and here's all you have to do. You have to turn it upside down and deploy it and hit record. That's all you have to do. And you have to share it with people that not making your payments and coming out of forbearance or working with other companies who is not a traditional real estate agent is not the best use of their time. Very, very simple talking points. And we don't need to be emphatic. And we can always end it right now with, hey, listen, things are tough right now. Have a great holiday season. Does that make sense?
100%. We always go by the rule of thumb. Done is better than perfect. Don't have to, get all glammed up. You don't have to make sure your background's, everything is perfect. Just get on there and actually do the activity and get your message out. I know I think we sound like a broken record, and a lot of other folks that we follow and listen to saying the same thing. And just some folks will implement that strategy and actually talk to folks, and some others will run and hide and put their head underneath the sand and say, this year's been terrible because of this and this and this, instead of adapting and overcoming. But a couple things about 2020, you did hit on the bad, and it's very evident because I was in Vegas earlier this year and just seeing some of just how that has changed. Or if I went into my town to look at some of the restaurants and like, whoa, that closed, or that one's no longer there. It's very, very depressing. But a couple of good things that have come out of this is just the amount of people that have been able to take advantage of the current interest rate market. I've been doing this 17 years or so. I've never seen an interest rate in the twos like this.
No.
And it's just ridiculous. So to have $4+ trillion go through the mortgage machine, and either that be refinance or that be people that are buying the house that they couldn't afford last year that now they can afford because the interest rates are lower or whatever it is. There is some silver lining to it, but yeah, we cannot overlook the 30% that can't make the rent or mortgage payments, that it could even get any worse. I echo what you're saying is call your folks, broadcast it from the mountaintops. Don't come out as a sleazily car salesman, give me a deal, I need to help you or whatnot. But if you just come from contribution, like a lot of folks say, and just express your message, maybe your phone rings and maybe you can help a family out that's in a bad spot. So I completely agree with you. I'm going to switch subjects on you just a hot minute. You said the CFPB with the new administration is going to come out and be swinging with an iron fist.
Yep.
For Wells Fargo, I know that they beat the hell out of them, the past 4 years and whatnot. But we got FHFA. Under the Trump administration, they wanted to come out of conservatorship. So
right. They're still trying to.
The head of the FHFA threw on this money grab, 0.5% whatever fee, just because you're refinancing.
Yep.
I want to make these two agencies that we've been ripping off for the past 10 plus years, solvent. So we're going to do a money grab and add this fee. Well, that got pushed back whenever they came out with it 3 months ago or whatnot. That got pushed back and said, okay, we've heard you guys complain, or we've understood your guys' reasoning, but we're going to push it out to December. Hip, hip, hooray. Our voices were heard. Now we're getting hit with this half a point hit. So to everybody, if you have a $200,000 deal that you're refinancing, there was a $1,000 just because fee that got added.
That's exactly what it was, by the way.
Yeah, and I don't understand why this half point fee that, since Freddie and Fannie are not going to conservatorship, they're still going to be under government control. Why is this fee still showing up? I mean, I see locks come through every day. I'm like, oh, brutal. And who pays for it? It's, the companies that are paying for this in most cases. So I don't know. What are your thoughts on that? You think it goes away, or is it still going to stick around for a little bit longer?
When was the last time the government took a tax away? So I spoke a couple of months ago with Dave Stevens, who is the head of the FHA and the past president of the NBA for 7 years. And he saw this for what it is it was a money grab, because we're seeing all this money. Remember, we had a $4 trillion year. We have a pipeline that can deal with $2 trillion.
Yeah.
Now, run twice as much as you can through a hose, and what happens? And so the FHFA, who's been undercapitalized as a result of their conservatorship, in the Trump administration, this is complicated, is trying to recapitalize, because they have a congressional mandate of how much money they have to have on the books if they're released from government control. Now, the government is not just going to give them the money, even though they've taken every cent of the bailout, which was never a bailout. They've taken every cent of that back, plus an additional $15 billion, okay? But they're never going to get that money back. What the government is saying is, well, you have a line of credit with the Treasury for $275 billion, but it's not capitalizing the GSEs, the government-sponsored enterprises. So what Trump has said was, well, we're going to allow the GSEs to recapitalize, and the recapitalization is going to get them out of conservatorship. This is the longest conservatorship in the history of the world, okay? It's also the most expensive one. When you look at Fannie and Freddie, it hits all the superlatives. So when you have DeMarco, who's running the FHFA, who holds Fannie and Freddie in conservatorship, he's saying, well, how can I bring more money in? Well, we got a $4 trillion influx. And he says, well, shit, I want some of that.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what he did. And that's exactly what they did. And in fact, the G fee, the guarantee fee, and the guarantee fee is a reasonable in a sense. A guarantee fee, when you pay your insurance for your car, you're putting your money is supposed to go into a pool. So if you have 1,000 people putting money into a pool, and then 2 people, have head-on collisions, well, then your pool is going to pay for that. That's the idea. It's a crowdsourcing of money. That's what all insurance is. So the idea of the G fee is we as lenders are going to pay a premium on our money in the event that somebody gets foreclosed on. But we have to collect enough money in the event of a catastrophic, in the event of something that is catastrophic, like a massive housing recession. And so so what we do is we bring the money in, but they're undercapitalized because when they went to conservatorship, all the money gets pushed to the United States Treasury. So it's only been for the past year that the GSEs have been able to keep that G fee, but that wasn't enough for DeMarco. He said, well, let me get this half point fee on every refinance, because the Trump administration is trying to take them out of conservatorship and make them what they were, which was a quasi-public-private enterprises. It looks like that's going to run out. The point of this is with the incoming administration, they see this as a cash cow.
Nope.
So if he was president for 6 more months, they would be out of conservatorship. But they're going to hit a wall on this thing. They're not going to get enough money. They're not going to get out before January 20th. So with Biden coming in, he wants to keep them in conservatorship. Now, what a lender and a real estate agent needs to know is conservatorship is not necessarily a bad thing, because if we bring private capital to the whole thing, rates are going to go up. But because we don't have an implicit, we have an explicit guarantee, because they are wholly owned by the United States government. The explicit guarantee on every one of these loans means we're going to be able to keep rates a little bit lower than they otherwise would be. What it also means is we're going to keep 70% of the loans that we write in this country, the company behind it, undercapitalized, backed up by the United States Treasury. Is it a good thing or a bad thing? I kind of vacillate on this. I go back and forth. I think it might be kind of good. It might be kind of bad. I think that if you buy a house right now, and you get a conventional loan, you're living in government housing. Where's the cheese? I want my government cheese.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's been like that since they knocked on the door or kicked the front doors in and basically just took over. But
yeah, it's a complicated mess right now. I think what we're going to see, in the short term, is we're going to see probably a recapitalization to a certain extent with the GSEs. They're going to stay in conservatorship, and our low rate environment is going to be here for the next couple of years. Like again, it might jump up and down by 1/8 or 1/4%, but it's not going to be anything huge.
Which at the end of the day helps out the consumer and helps out people, sell more real estate or refinance more.
Sure.
The only thing I feel bad for is the poor folks that own Fannie Freddie or that work there. That they were the most profitable businesses in the world, Fannie Freddie, and then they don't have anything in the piggy bank because of this. The Treasury just comes in and says thank you very much because we bailed you out, 2010 or whatever it was.
Do we want to go down this wormhole? These
really.
guys got hosed. They got hosed. Now, so Fannie Mae has been, over the past 80 years, the most profitable business in the history of the world. Remember, I said we're going to talk about superlatives. Freddie Mac is not short behind. They had 3 bad years. Can we just call that a mulligan and play through? So what they've done is after 2011, they once again became the most profitable businesses in the history of the world, more than Exxon, more than Apple, more than Amazon, more than anybody. They made an enormous amount of money, and every single penny was taken by the United States government. So what happened was everyone thinks Fannie and Freddie was bailed out. They were not bailed out. What happened was the U.S. government, they bailed out GM. They bailed out Merrill Lynch. They bailed out Goldman Sachs. They did not bail out Fannie Freddie. What they did is they created something called preferred stock. It's like a super first lien, okay? So when you lend somebody money, you have a first lien position, don't you? Okay? That means that if you're going to sell your shit, I get my money first. Well, the government came in and said, well, I'm going to create a super first lien position. And I've had this for 50 years. Hold on a second here. You can't come in and change the nature of my contract to make this beneficial for you. But in fact, that's exactly what the U.S. government did. So we have what's called common stock. Common stock is in everybody's retirement in this country, all around the world. So the U.S. government came in and said, well, we're not going to bail you out. We're going to create preferred stock, and we're going to take a super first lien position. And they bought 90% of Fannie and Freddie. And they said, okay, we're going to take a dividend off of our preferred stock, but the only way to do that is all these people who own this forever, that first lien position, you get nothing.
Wow.
And then what the federal government did after being in conservatorship for 2 years is they said, well, hold on a second here. We're not going to take a percentage of your profits. We're just going to take it all. They did that. They literally did that. Every quarter, we're going to look at your money. We're going to leave enough in the banks to keep people employed, and all of your profits, we're taking everything. And all these common stock people, they were done. Now, think about this. What has the housing market done since 2010?
Crazy.
We've seen our biggest increases ever. We have lower foreclosures than we have ever had, and every major metropolitan market in the entire country is above where it was at in 2008. But the difference is these are not delegated or non-del loans. These are all on your meat and potato Fannie Freddie loans. So we have rebuilt times 10 the United States housing market, the $17 trillion housing market, on the back of Fannie and Freddie. The United States government took every single penny of it, much to the dismay of the people who have invested in Fannie Freddie for over 50 years. So yes, it's a really interesting thing. There's been like 47 lawsuits that have been brought against the federal government for what they did, which is, as a human, it has to be unethical, doesn't it? It just, on a very reasonable level, you can't take what I bought and then take it from me and then take the benefits of it and then flush me down the toilet. But that's what the United States Treasury did. And under the Biden administration, they're going to continue doing it. Now, here's the point. It's going to benefit people who are buying houses, but because it'll keep a low rate environment. But as a matter of principle, shouldn't you reinstate the people who've had their entire investments in Fannie and Freddie over the past 40, 50, 60 years? Should we not reinstate what their initial investment was? As a matter of principle, I think we need to do that.
For sure. Yeah, I agree with you 100%. What's the difference if you have some Ponzi, somebody that just create a Ponzi scheme and steal somebody's assets compared to the government just coming in and just, we're going to do this and we're going to take everything every quarter from you guys. But keep on doing what you're doing because we really appreciate it. And it would be a lot of fun, and this is a different wormhole, but where does all that money go? What is it fund? Like, where is it spent? What is happening with it? But anyway.
You've watched my show before.
Well, here's the thing, Brian, is that I've been watching Frank for 10 plus years.
Okay.
Back in the old days, whenever you called it the old name, I've been watching, and for everybody that's still tuned in, go get their mobile app. Go to your app store, whatever, NREP, download it. Not only do you get a daily video with Frank and Brian talking about something, interviewing somebody cool or insightful, but then you also have a plethora of all these other different Housing Wire and NAR. You have anything that you want to read about to stay up on what's going on in the real estate market and also the mortgage market. It's an amazing free app that I recommend that everybody do. But I've been watching your guys' videos forever and I love it. I share it. But yeah, so I thank you for the effort and the consistency.
Yeah, I'm a really smart guy. Just ask my mom. Okay, so the guarantee fee, or the money which is supposed to capitalize our government-sponsored enterprises, which backs all of our loans, that money is intended as a security backdrop in the event of a foreclosure. So whoever invested in that mortgage-backed security is going to be, they're going to have a return on their money for that. They're not going to face the loss of that foreclosure. All right. So what happened is they're making so much money over the years with the G fee, and the Fannie and Freddie had so much money. What were they doing with that? Well, like they did with Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and the biggest one that nobody talks about, all the money that the federal government was bringing in, they decided to use that money in areas other than foreclosures. So you might remember the BP oil spill. Remember, or the oil when we had that whole island that popped up and we flooded the entire Gulf with oil. That was funded by the G fee. We also had a housing bill, and that meant like freeway overpasses, new roads, new highways. That was funded by the G fee. So the interesting thing is I tell people, I'm like, well, if you bought a house with Fannie and Freddie, congratulations, you just funded that overpass over there and you cleaned some oil off the back of a duck over there in the Gulf. Mm-hmm. So it's a reallocation of money, and that's left them undercapitalized, which is a really complicated place to be. But this is kind of how our government runs. So keep in mind, if the government now has decided that they are not going to bail out Fannie and Freddie like everybody else, but they're going to acquire them. So here's the thought. We have not paid off 1 cent of the bailout for Fannie and Freddie. Not one red penny, even though they've given them back $14 billion more than what the initial bailout was. Not one penny of that principal balance has been paid off. The Costa Nostra, the damn mafia, would be embarrassed by what the federal government is doing with Fannie and Freddie. They would. So how is that possible? Well, it's because they created, as we spoke about a moment ago, that preferred stock. And they're bringing this money in and they're reallocating it to things that are entitlement programs outside of the purview of the GSEs. So when you buy a house today, yes, that G fee is going to come in. It's not going to recapitalize. It's not going to go into your personal insurance policy on these properties in the event that you foreclose. No, it's going to go towards some cockamamie thing in Tucumcari, Arizona. Or Texas, my bad.
Yeah.
Tucumcari, Texas.
No offense to everybody in Arizona.
Hey, by the way, a couple of weeks ago,
yeah,
I stood on a corner in Winslow, Arizona.
Oh. There you go.
Such a fine place to be.
I don't know what you're doing on the corner of a street, but we'll go ahead.
There's a girl, my lord, in a flatbed Ford, and she's trying to take a look at me. Take it easy.
Great.
Come on, the Eagles. The Eagles.
Eagles.
You have to understand this. When I stood on a corner in Winslow, Arizona, it is Take It Easy by the Eagles.
Yeah.
You have to be 50. You're not 50.
No, I'm going to be 44 in March, getting up there.
You're too old. You should know this.
I do know the Eagles. The drummer was the singer. I don't know their names, but no, they're a great, great band. My dad used to make me listen to them, but I grew up very, very fond of them as well.
I'm like the 50 millionth person who stood on a corner in Winslow, Arizona.
That's hilarious. Well, last thing.
Sure.
Judge coming in, going to be the new director over HUD. So ruling FHA. The fun part about the mortgage insurance on FHA, if somebody puts 3.5% down, the monthly MI stays on for the life of the loan. It may get like $1 cheaper every year, but you're hooked. They got their fangs hooked into you for the entire term.
Yep.
She's pro consumer, from what I've heard and read. Do you think the MI, because I mean FHA made a ton of money, like all these other agencies and stuff, but does FHA, do they change how much they charge on their upfront, their monthly, and will the 3.5% folks that are paying for the full term, will they get arranged a little bit to where it may drop off after 5 or 7 years or something?
Well, legacy loans are not going to change at all, period. So they're not going to change the terms. If they have that money, they're going to keep it. So FHA, so we talked about the G fee with Fannie and Freddie. That's basically their insurance policy. So the MI fund for your FHA, VA, and USDA, your Ginnie loans, they have a congressional mandated of 2.5% that they have to hold on the books. We got far below that in 2008 and 9, but we have subsequently got that up to almost 5%. So HUD is holding on to more money now than they've ever had, like literally ever had. They have a ton of money. So that would lead me to speculate that, yeah, maybe they're going to do something with their MI fund or with their mortgage insurance, either their upfront or their monthly. It would make sense to do it because they have that much money. With the incoming administration, with all this money, you could do one of two things. You could either lower the cost where people are buying houses, or you could take that money and use it on entitlement programs. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know which one they're going to do, but I would give it a solid coin flip that we're going to see our mortgage insurance on our Ginnie loans go down. A solid coin flip. If we had this conversation, 5 months ago, I would say absolutely no chance whatsoever. But there is a rationale and there's a path to making that happen. However, COVID is the ultimate screwball, isn't it? I mean, COVID is like it is the ultimate screwball that we don't know what the ramifications are going to be. Perhaps HUD is going to come in because, again, with the second round of shutdowns that we have right now, and people or underemployed, HUD could come in and try to fill that gap a little bit, and that could affect the MI fund, which would be reasonable considering we're having a once-in-a-lifetime pandemic. It might be reasonable. So that's the screwball here. But I would say if we do find a way to get out of this whole COVID thing reasonably, it's not even reasonable, is it? If we can find a way to get through this thing, there's a chance that we might find a 0.25% dip in your MI. I wouldn't bank on it with rates as low as they are. Just don't let that factor into how you're writing loans for people right now.
Well, the option I didn't hear you talk about is them actually refunding money to clients that are currently in FHA mortgage. So you don't think the government would just send a check just because? Thank you very much.
Here's me holding my breath.
Yeah, well, you're going to pay us out here soon.
Yeah, no. They're not going to do that. They're legacy loans. How they're going to write loans going forward, it could possibly change. But when you think about, I come from a world where we wrote 6 and 7% interest rates.
Yeah.
I mean, we're down in the 2s right now. And even if you get like a 0.25% break in your MI, and you're, median sales price for a house in the Midwest, $275,000, it's going to make a $20 difference in your payment. We're not going to see a significant shift there. Write Govy loans because they're killer. FHA loans are fantastic. They're the ultimate subprime loan. I've said that forever. Look at your Alt-A, your non-QM loans. But really, the best Alt-A non-QM loan is going to be your FHA loan, and understand your guidelines as a loan officer, and understand what the loan level price adjustments are with the company and the overlays that you have, and find a path. You can find a path to write more of those loans. I'll tell you, if we have 100 loan officers who are watching this right now, 75 of these loan officers have a fundable FHA loan in their pipeline that has been turned down because they don't know their guidelines.
Yeah. Well, and the biggest one, 10% down to where it'll free up to where you can actually go a lot lower if the investors are still accepting that paper, and if your correspondent, if your bank lines will allow you to go down. FHA says go down to 500, but the people that control the money are like, we don't want that. We don't want that. So, but yeah.
Would you ever personally lend money to somebody with a 500 credit score?
Hey, no, I would not.
Okay, so understand this.
Depends on their circuit. Why are they a 500?
No, a 500 credit score. To get a 500 credit score, here's what you have to do. Open up a whole bunch of trade lines, screw everything up, okay? And then find a way, which is hard work, to have more people lend you money where they shouldn't have, and then screw all of that up. You're pathologically a non-payer.
Yeah.
Like, lending money to anybody with a 500 credit score is the dumbest idea on the face of the planet. And yet the federal government will ensure that if your lender will write that loan, which they shouldn't.
Yep. But, we're just originators. We can't tell them who, yes or no, for sure, to send it in.
We're soldiers, man. You cattle prod me and tell me which direction to march.
Yeah. That's funny. But summary, 2021, rates are going to be good. Inventory woes, maybe less painful a little bit. Unfortunately, foreclosures might go up a little bit. And then we'll see what the new administration does with some of the rules, especially with HUD and FHA, if that goes down a little bit. And watch out for the CFPB. If you're printing any marketing material, make sure everything's saved and everything's on the up and up. Your compliance department is going to become relevant again compared to the past couple of years. If you sneeze wrong, like, here's $1 million fine, just because, whatever.
2021 is going to be a great year. Write clean loans. I mean, you hit it on the head. Just write clean loans. Do good business. Don't, if you're giving somebody money for a referral, don't do that. Just don't do that. And even if foreclosures bump up a little bit, we have enough demand. That's not a bad thing. It's going to create more inventory. We're going to see a steep decline in refinances, but they're still going to be here because rates are going to be great. We're going to see an uptick in our purchase market approach, people moving out of metropolitan areas. Sure. Realtors, find a relationship. Don't wait for your relo department for the company that you're working for to find people. Go search out people in your local metro area, because people are going to continue moving out to the burbs. We are going to see more inventory. Loan officers, make sure you have those great relationships with those realtors. Make sure you're providing great service and your communication is as good as it could possibly be, and you'll succeed in 2021. Here's the whole point. There's a whole bunch of people who are going to screw this thing up.
Yeah.
But we have a path. I always say, read the tea leaves of what the market has to say and anticipate tomorrow and do it today. And we know what 2020 is going to be. And, I always love New Year's Eve. Well, what I'm going to do on New Year's Eve, I'm going to make this commitment, and I'm going to be great. I'm going to, quit eating saturated fats, and I'm going to be a great marketer. And then you're going to get loaded on New Year's Eve, wake up on New Year's Day, hungover, and the whole thing's out the can.
And you want a cheeseburger.
Right, exactly. Exactly. Can I get some biscuits and gravy?
Please.
Yeah, but the whole thing is like, for anybody who's serious about their marketing, listen to what we spoke about today. Read the tea leaves today. It's a couple of weeks, but your New Year's resolution, it started a week ago. It doesn't start on New Year's Day. And we are nesting right now. And I know we're going to get fewer viewers from this because people are sidetracked. And I understand that. I get it. But for those of you who are watching, it's 90% of the people do 10% of the business. My ass. It is 5% of the people who are doing 95% of the business. And nobody got into real estate or lending because they wanted to be subpar. Nobody ever got into work and say, I want to be middle management and get stepped on all day. No, we get into this business because we want to exceed. We want to find the best in ourselves. And it's hard. It's hard to change your habits. It's hard. The older you get, the harder they get. Habits are like weeds. I've said it before. You can pick a little weed when it's young and it comes out of the ground. You let it sit there for 6 months and the weed becomes harder to pull out. You let that thing sit there for 10 years, it turns into a tree. And if you ever try to pull a tree out of the ground, your habits are hard to change. Don't take any of this stuff for granted. So make little changes, but start them today. Not in 2 weeks, start them today. We know what the tea leaves show us for next year as a lender and a realtor. Reach out to that past client database. We already gave you your talking points. As a lender, reach out to your realtors. Put a business plan together. This is what you need to do. And if you do that, then maybe you could become part of the 5%. You could be with a sneech with a star on your belly, not one with stars on theirs or stars not on theirs, whatever the Dr. Seuss book was. But you understand the point. You have to start today. And I mean that too. Yeah. We do this I've done this for 15 years. Yeah. There's 1 or 2 people who do it, and 95% of the people, 98% of the people won't do shit.
It's somebody the secret sauce, but it's the implementer that they're actually going to taste that success for sure. But
absolutely.
Hey, I appreciate it. I wanted to wish you, your family, and everybody happy holidays. Be safe, have fun, enjoy your family, or whatever
likewise.
You do. But yeah.
Shawn, where do you live?
St. Louis.
Oh, you're in St. Louis?
Yeah.
I got a good friend out in Festus.
Festus, that's 8 miles south of me.
I know. Oh, Goya's.
Yeah.
Goya's, the sandwich? Is it Goya's?
I don't know what Goya's is. I'll have to try it out.
Oh my God, are you out of your mind?
Yeah, apparently.
They got a Michelin star. You've never been there. They've been there for 100 years. It's in the Italian district.
Oh, well, in the hill. Okay.
Yeah. Joya's. Is it Joya's or what?
The Hill is an amazing place.
They have a homemade hot salami sandwich that has been, no, I'm dead serious. That has been internationally recognized as one of the best sandwiches in the entire country. You've never been there?
I'm Uber eating them today. I'm going to see if they'll deliver on.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Seriously.
I've heard of it. I've never been. There's other sub sandwiches that I've been.
No, there's not.
There's nobody else better than Goya's.
No, there's not. I live outside of Napa, California, and I'm telling you right now, the best sandwich I've ever had is right around the corner from you, and they've been there for 100 years.
Okay. Well, then that is on my to-do list for sure for 2021.
Hey, send me a text.
Goya's.
Yeah, go. You have, dude. It's the most unique thing you've ever had in your life.
Yeah.
So give it a shot and send me a text. Tell me what you think. Oh, and by the way, if they will ship it, if they'll ship that meat,
send it on over to you.
Yeah, dry pack that stuff and send me a couple of pounds. I'll reimburse you, I promise, next year.
Sounds good. Well, appreciate it. Have a great one. Be safe. And we'll be talking to you next year.
All right, sounds good.
Bye-bye.
Do the sandwich.
Yeah.
All right.